joining us today.
Hi, buddy.
Stuart is one of my mentors. He's one of my favorite people. He has a lot of knowledge and wisdom about this industry. He's the CEO of BBR Talents, and he has been actor, writer, director, producer, multi-hyphenate. Stuart, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah.
Your
First,
background?
let's ask the most important question. Do we need this? Is this better for you? See?
Yeah, okay.
All right. First question has been answered. What was your question for me?
Who are you? Who are you? What are you doing? Now, tell us about yourself and your background and history. How
Well,
you got
first
here.
let's ask them, and I mean this in the most genuine way. How many of you know who I am? Okay, how many of you have no idea who this guy is? Okay, good. So about 50-50. Great. So I'll start where I am and work my way backwards. I'm a CEO and a partner of Brady Brannon and Rich Talent. I'm also CEO and a partner of B Times 2 Entertainment, which is a management company. I'm also a motivational speaker. For 25 years, I ran one of the largest commercial acting and audition technique schools in town, Robinson Creative. I worked as a casting director at Sheila Manning Casting for 12 years in my early life. So I had a lot of experience as a casting director at the largest, most working commercial casting company in town. Where we met, yes. I worked at an advertising agency for 3 years, and I had a pretty good career, a pretty bad career that then turned into a good career as an actor. The reason being that I was the same talent, I was the same individual, but the experience of being a casting director and being a director and being a writer and working at an ad agency and working at talent agencies informed me about this business, things that no one wants to share with you. They don't want you to know the inside secrets because then you'll know how to work them. So it enlightened me incredibly and opened up a very, very successful and lucrative acting career, which I gave up only because, well, I didn't give it up totally. I gave up auditioning, mostly because I felt that I could be more useful on this planet as an inspirer as opposed to just an artist. And I learned to include my artistry in everything that I do. So going back before that, I grew up dirt poor on a farm in western Pennsylvania, and my family moved here when I was 12 years old. And I grew up, tell my age, I grew up at the beginning of the civil rights movement. So I grew up in an environment where I was told that I would never succeed and that I should just take what was given to me and that nobody wanted to hear what I had to say. I should speak only when spoken to. So I want to start the day by saying it's a dream come true that you show up to hear me speak, because it's the answer to all of those people back on the farm who told me that no one would ever want to hear what I had to say. So I start this day with gratitude that you have come to hear what I have to say, and I hope that not only will you be enlightened, informed, and entertained, but my intent is to positively change your life, is for this to be a day that you're going to remember years down the line because something happened that put you on the path to where you intend to be. And if I can do that in opposition of those people who told me the limits of my life, I hope that I can remove those limits from your life.
Give it up for that.
So I always like to do something different, and I'm going to start with two things. Every time I speak, I ask this question, because I don't want to tell you the things that the common experts would tell you. I think that many of you have been following that advice for some time, and I think the reason you're here is that you're seeking something more than that generic advice. However, leveling with you and telling you the truths of this business, truth can be painful. So I always like to ask the crowd, I can do it two ways. I can do the mild version, which will be very pleasing and pleasant and etc., or I can do the extra spicy version, which really cuts to the chase. Okay, that's nice, but let me make sure, are there people in the room who say, I really can't take the spicy, I need the mild? Anybody?
Get out.
No, I don't want peer pressure to bully you into being caliented without your permission. Okay, so you like the spicy. So I will then, as a result, I'm going to cut to the chase and tell you it as I see it. I try not to give my opinions. I try to give you answers based on my experience in the business and what I've seen happen again and again. There is no one truth, as you know, but I'll give you the best truth that I can give you that will achieve results. And unfortunately, sometimes things I say are hard for you to digest. Sometimes they're hard for your expert friends to digest. Sometimes they're hard for the industry to digest. But the goal, again, is to change your life, not to spout wisdom. So also, I don't like to do things the usual way, so I'm going to ask you to indulge me and do some things with me, okay? Will you go with me a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to get you in the right frame of mind to do this thing, because I think that what happens is we come into these things in a wrong frame of mind. The industry wants to put you in a wrong frame of mind. When you go to an audition, the feeling is that you're someone in need of a job and there's all these powerful people, these gatekeepers who you have to go in and impress and please, and then you get to the thing where they've scheduled you to come at 10:45 a.m. or worse yet, 4:30 p.m. on the west side. So you're all tense, etc. And then of course there's a big parking lot with a sign that says, "No actor parking." Which makes no sense to me. How do you open a business where you're going to bring in hundreds of actors a day, but you don't get a facility where those hundreds of actors can park their car? And then you enter the lobby and there's this sense of, shh, 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 shh. We'll be with you in a minute. So what can that frame of mind do to you but make you feel like you're wanting? You're in need. You're alone against this army of powerful people. And if only you can make a good impression and earn their favor, will you move to the next level? And I get it. That was one of the hard parts of acting for me. But what I want to do is make sure that you're in the right frame of mind. So I like to talk to music, so I'm going to use some music. But I want to share with you a piece that inspires me and attempts to remind me who I am. So, slow. So work with me, go with me. Okay, I'm going to do this glasses thing on and off. So bear with me. Here's some music. So what I want you to do is take a deep breath in and try to breathe out the day. I know you got worries, you got bills, you got things that are going on. Breathe it out. Think of this as a sanctuary just for the next couple hours. You don't have to worry about all that stuff. All you got to do is be present here. I want you to abandon the feeling of being alone. I want you to feel like you're a part of a community, because everybody who's here came here for a similar reason. Be a part of this community as opposed to being an individual. Be present. Be open. Here's a piece of poetry that I think is meaningful. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You have only to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairie and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Wherever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Breathe in. Breathe out. And let's be present. Let's have some fun and learn some things from a very strong, powerful, I am enough kind of place. All right, James, hit it.
I'm in. All right. Well, pretty good start, right? Yeah. You guys in? Stuart?
Was that meaningful at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. All right. So in the imparting of knowledge part, the thing that probably most people need to know in a functional way, how do they get from where they are to being represented by you, to being managed by you? How do they get from there to there? Because that's the place with all the obstacles.
Okay. So when I talk with actors, there are some really fundamental basic truths that all of us know. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know. I'm just going to tell you that you have to do it. Because the advice you will get from most casting directors and most agents and most studio executives and people like that is advice that's meant to help them. In other words, I give you advice that I think might be meaningful, but it also protects my privacy and limits your access to me and limits your understanding of the process so that I'm still able to have enough power to get you to do what I need you to do. Am I making sense with that? It's not a bad thing, but I just don't want to give you the combination to the safe because I don't know how you're going to handle rummaging through my stuff, metaphorically. So I'm going to share with you some of those inside truths, and they're not new stuff. The bottom line is this: you are not, unfortunately, in the acting business. You're in the sales business. You have a product that buyers need to be interested in, and they need to see enough value that they will exchange their currency for your currency. They have to feel that they need you, otherwise they're not interested. No one wants to do you a favor. Not with talent, not with this business. No one wants to do a good deed. Any of you watch Shark Tank? You know, and so someone will come in with this great story of how I'm going to change the world and I'm going to save children in terrible places, etc. And then the sharks go, oh my God, and they wipe a tear from their eye and they say, what are your sales? Because business is business. And as lovely as you are, as wonderful as you are, if you don't have the numbers, if you don't have the stuff they need, they say respectfully, I'm out. Well, that's what our business does. So I'm going to talk at length about the real bottom line. If you want to make it in this business, you have to have what I call evidence of your greatness. There's no question about that. If you go to a shoe store and they have no picture window, you're probably going to pass by. What draws you into the shoe store is the shoes they have on sample in the window. What do you have in your window right now? Well, there are only a few ways you can build a career, because you got to understand you can't compete on the level that the experts give you advice about. They'll tell you to put your resume together and make sure it's really professional, etc. How many of you have a resume? Your resume is relatively useless. Do you understand why? Do you? Because what could be on that resume that would impress me?
I'm a private pilot.
You're a private pilot. Yes, that's information that could be useful to me. So there are only two sections on your resume that are of any use. your special skills, and your training. And even the training part is so-so. Why? Because you're here today, you get to put me on your resume. But I don't know what that means. But everything else on your resume is useless, because if there was something on there that I would be impressed by, my job is to already know who you are. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what could be on there? I won an Oscar for Moonlight? No, I would know who you are. So there couldn't possibly be much on your resume that I would go, oh, we need to bring this person in. So here's what your resume is good for. A, it tells me that you've been on a set before. So you have to have credits in TV, in film, and in theater. Not comfortable bringing in people who haven't walked the walk. But anything else that's on there isn't going to impress me. Now, there are a few people in the audience who have enough credits, guest star, guest star, guest star, guest star, guest star, that I go, oh, okay, this person's solid. But usually those people have been submitted to me in a different way than most of you would be submitted to me. Am I making sense so far? So you can't count on your resume. You can't count on your credits. You can't count on your star power, because if you had star power, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And when I say star power, I don't mean your talent or your worth. I mean your Q, your recognizability. There's a new thing in town that some of you may have star power and you don't know it. If you have 500,000 followers on any of the social media sites or more, you have some star power. Anybody in that category? Okay, so that's something to aspire to, because that's a new clout that an artist has that we didn't have before. You know, still now for clout, you have to have starred in X number of motion pictures or had a series or done a certain number of memorable guest stars, etc. The truth is, I don't think many of you have that. So why would I instruct you as how to aspire to that? Because that's that vicious circle. In order to get a job, you got to have an agent. In order to get an agent, you have to have had a job. In order to get an audition, you have to have credits. In order to get credits, you need to have an audition. So those are the same vicious circles that end up just frustrating you. Am I making sense now? So there's only three ways that you can sell yourselves. Only 3 ways you can compete. Number 1 is your evidence. In other words, if I see a piece of tape or an article or a letter of recommendation or an award or something that makes me go, holy cow, who is this person? Again, most likely that's going to be some video that I see the work, or I see you live in a theater like this, or I see you appearing somewhere, etc. If I see that evidence of your greatness, I'm in. The second is your personality. If I'm at a party and you're there and you're just amazing, and I go, oh my God, who's that woman? And someone says, oh, that's so-and-so, the actress. That can work. That's harder, because then you got to be at a party with gatekeepers and you got to be wonderful on cue. Okay? Number 3 is your political connections. If your uncle is Mark Zuckerberg, you can have anything you want. Seriously. Even if your uncle is vice president of production at Paramount, you have an advantage that the rest of us don't have. Not a talent advantage, but a connection advantage. A doors opening advantage. So far, making sense? Those are the 3 things. So evidence is number 1. You have to have a reel. How many of you have a reel? How many of you think your reel is breathtaking? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So you have to have a breathtaking reel. So let me give you a definition, my definition, because I think the industry thinks a reel is something else. A reel in the past was sort of a montage of the roles you've been able to book thus far. That's not a reel, because that's not evidence of your greatness. That's evidence of where you've been. What I need is evidence of what you are capable of achieving. Do you see the difference? So it's great that you had those 2 lines opposite Robert De Niro in a movie. Love it. But it's not enough to make me a casting director, me an agent, me a director, me a producer go crazy over you. Because it's 2 lines and it's not really you carrying the day. I need that piece of material in which you are carrying the day. Now I know some of you are saying, well, how can I get that if I haven't booked it? Well, for the first time in history, the answer is easy. You make it. There's more technology in James's phone that just fell on the floor than there was in the best consumer model camera 10 years ago. That camera, they're in Japan, they're making feature films with that. And they're making money. So you have the technology now to create just as high a quality demo of your work as the studios have. Seriously. And if it's worth it to you, okay, you rent a red camera or whatever that George Lucas uses on Star Wars. How much is it to rent a red? $10,000. $10,000 to rent it? For rent, for a day. Let's say it's $500. Let's say it's $1,000. Is it worth it to you to pay $1,000 for a camera that's going to help you create the evidence that's going to help you earn $100,000 next year? That's your choice, your question. Of course, the thing has to be good. In other words, we need evidence not of the fact that you can say lines or not of the fact that you can rent a red camera. We need evidence of the thing that brought you here today. The thing that you know about you that I don't yet know. You know what your greatness is. And most of you know that you haven't had the chance to exercise that greatness. You haven't been given the opportunity to play a role that will show the world what it is you're capable of. Well, that's what needs to be on tape. If Meryl Streep had a reel, Jesus, what would she pick? Every performance is evidence of greatness. All you need is one piece that is evidence of greatness. Anything else is not your job at this point. There's no other job for you but creating, producing, and distributing that evidence. I get 40 emails a day of people emailing me, "Hi, Stuart, I hear you're very approachable. I'd love to be with your agency." And my answer is always the same. I'm not an agent. I'm an executive. I'm a CEO. But I have the ability to forward your evidence to people who might want to sign you. But if you don't have killer evidence, I can't help you. They won't take my word for it because agenting is a passion business. I can't say, represent this man because I say so. They have to feel it down in here in order to really do the kind of work on your behalf that's going to get you where you want to go. Some of you have agents who submit you. Great. That means you're in the bucket. That's not going to get you where you want to go. There's 8,000 faces in that bucket every day. For mom in this commercial, for Clark in this film, in this TV series, etc. So just submitting you puts you in the bucket, but it doesn't get you the opportunity. You have to have an agent who's passionate enough that they're willing to put themselves at risk, go outside their comfort zone in order to make sure that that casting office knows what I know about this actor. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Because a lot of times having an agent and having a manager puts us in a kind of complacency that says, okay, I've done my part, now let's see what opportunities come in. No, the work has just begun. And if those representatives aren't gut level passionate about you, you're just in the bucket. So, the key, the only thing you have to concern yourself with is finding that evidence. Creating, editing, distributing that evidence. What else do you have to do? Yeah, you do your training and you do your gym and you do your day job and you do those things, etc. But the question you're asking me is, how do I get my career going? How you get your career going is that. Ideation, production, distribution. When I say distribution, one of the people who raised their hand about having a killer reel, was that you? Who raised their hand right in here? So who's seen your reel? Okay, so they've seen it, and what did they say? Come on in. So you're set. I mean, I'm not being facetious. If those gatekeepers have seen your reel and gone, holy cow, this is great, all you need to do is do that in more offices. You understand what I'm saying? Because once you're on my A-list, you're on my A-list until you screw it up. Which you won't. So distribution is making sure that the people who need to see your work have seen it. Here's some basic truths. In the commercial world, there's only 15 casting directors who control 80 to 85% of the business in town. 15 people. So that's 15 people who it's not negotiable that need to see your evidence. Not you on a good audition, because you're one of hundreds there. Your evidence, that killer reel that she's talking about. There's 15 people that's your number one mission, is making sure they see it. My guess is when you turn on the TV each night, there are 15 shows that you go, why am I not on that show? Come on. This is my wheelhouse. Okay, whoever's casting those 15 shows, that's who needs to see your evidence. I can't make it any clearer than that. You want to get a great agent, they need to see and be moved by that evidence. So in case of the artist who I just spoke to, if that number of casting directors is 20, then you're set. No questions asked. I'm going to say do what she does. But if that number is 1 or 2 or 0, the work is clear, what you need to do. You can't compete on the other levels. You can compete. You can triumph on that level. If you have a connection who can help you, and you have evidence to show that person that reassures them that you will carry the day if they give you an opportunity, what are you waiting for? Yes, sir.
Are you saying the casting directors will look at links that are unsolicited submissions? Hey, I got a great reel I want you to see?
Yes, not easily. That's the hard part of distribution. People tell me, I did a mailing to 50 agencies. Will you?
Yeah, well. For you, it depends. It depends on if we're looking for something in particular, then we're inviting you to show us your greatness and show us why we haven't seen you yet. So the persistence of wanting to present that, is part of your endurance, in this business too. And then the right window of opportunity presents itself. Some of that is intangible. It's not in your control. But you're being present enough to see that window of opportunity, and having the materials ready instantly will facilitate that. So let's say someone has got your attention.
Wait, let me speak to that before you do.
Yep.
Because I'm going to let James be my punching bag today. That's that safe answer that you get from everybody. Well, yeah, if we're looking for someone, and yeah, you got to be persistent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When is he not looking for the next major star? That's what he does for a living. So the idea that, if I'm looking for something like you, that's a safeguard. Because he doesn't want every person in this room showing up at his door saying, you said you'd see my tape. And he's saying, I don't have the time for that. The good news for you is, even if he said, yeah, I'll see your tape, not all of you would show up at his door. Because you're so steeped in the rules of don't bother anybody, and how could I ever have access, and he would never look at my tape, and that's too much trouble, etc., etc. So chances, I've done this before at events like this, where I've sat with a major casting director who said, yeah, come to my office. I'll give you an audition. Really? This is a true story. It was on an evening at my studio, and he said, yeah, my office is on the corner of Venice and Bagley. Come by. It was an audience of 200 people. You know how many people went to his office the next day? 2. 2. One got an audition and got a job. The other caught him in the hallway and he was buzzing by, and she said, oh, is that he said, I'll be back. And she got her feelings hurt and went home. Came to me saying, I'll never do that again. I said, you'll never do what? Run into someone who's busy? Because that's what James is saying. Of course he doesn't have time to sit with each of you and watch your reel. So distribution is finding a more compelling reason why he needs to watch your tape as opposed to everybody in the city and everybody in the room and everybody on the block. You see what I'm saying? Because you see that his answer is somewhat protective.
My job is to find new people and new faces, because that's what differentiates me from other casting directors. We're all fishing in the same pool, and I have to show my directors and my clients new people. I have to show them people they haven't seen before, and that will distinguish that. So I am always looking for it, but we do get inundated, and sometimes it's hard to sort it out. So the ability, as Stuart says, for you to create your own content, put it up, and make it visible is empowering for you. And it's happening at a time where that has never been available. You have the ability to promote yourself online. We're looking for influencers all the time, constantly. And in callbacks, my clients are Googling you to see what your following is, to see what kind of traction they're going to piggyback with you. And when people are getting numbers, they're being sought out. They don't even have to audition. They're being called up.
Yeah, and there's good news for you, because we're being truthful in this room. In this room, there's only 4 people who believe that their reel is killer at the point where it would be worth putting their neck on the chopping block to get you to watch it. The rest have some work to do. So you're not going to get inundated by everybody, because there's no point you going through the trouble of getting his attention and getting in front of him and pushing play on a thing that you don't think is brilliant. You got to have that. And the truth is, of the 4 people who said their reel is killer, 2 are wrong. I don't know which 2. But the odds are 2 are wrong, because I get those emails every day. I've heard you talk about killer reel, here it is. And then I watch it and it's not killer.
So the key is, do you know what's amazing about you? Do you know what your thing is? What the thing that you need to give us the evidence of is? You got to start there first. The thing that should be wowing us about your reel, you don't know what it is. How could I see it? You have to know what piece to lead with, what thing about you is special and amazing, and I have to see it. So you have to know that first.
Yeah, a lot of reels that we see, the artist saves some substantial scene for the closing.
We don't get there.
We don't get that far.
I know if I'm watching the rest of this 3 or 4 seconds into it. I know the thing that you led with should be the strongest thing that I'm going to see here, and I know if I'm in or not 3 or 4 seconds into it.
Yeah. Paul, can I use you as an example?
Yes.
So I saw Paul's reel recently, which has some pretty substantial work on it. Unfortunately, the first piece on his piece is him playing a very character role with a deep accent, etc. And the second piece is sort of a variation of that. So any casting director who sees it is going to think of Paul only for those very character, very specific roles. And you look at him in person, he's not like this outrageous character guy. He will work as a character actor, but he's got to have some insight about what to do with that crucial 10 seconds and which pieces to feature first, so that you earn the right for me to watch the second piece and then the third piece etc.
Exactly.
So you were going to ask a question when someone gets my attention.
Yeah, so let's say they have sparked your attention and displayed the evidence and garnered your interest, and they got a meeting with you, right? Let's do a little role playing. Maybe we can take a volunteer from the studio audience here to do a little role playing at an interview with you. Let's say you're having a meeting.
Because here's the weird thing. I'm interested in your talent, and what I do is schedule a meeting. That's like you're looking for a great chef, and what you do is schedule a meeting. It's not the best environment in which for me to learn what it is I need to learn, but it's the only way we have it. So let's see what happens in a meeting. Tell me about you as an actress.
Just kind of a tomboy.
Uh-huh.
My dad really wanted to have a boy first. He had a girl.
Uh-huh.
So he taught me like how to shoot a gun.
Yeah.
So I got that on my reel.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Okay, I'm going to stop right there. That's pretty good, right? Now, here's what happens. Yeah, give her some love. Can I use you as an example?
Sure.
Okay, so what always happens in the meeting is that awkward first 10 seconds that we had. Because she's waiting for me to ask some probing question or start this thing off. No, that's not how you do it. You have to be the starter. You're the star in the room. So every time you come to an interview or a meeting, etc., don't think that you're going to come in and behave yourself. Because we do that small talk thing. I start with, how are you? And she says, I'm really good. How are you? And I say, I'm really good too. And then we say, blah, blah, blah about the weather. And blah, did you have trouble finding our office? No, blah, 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 blah. And by then, unfortunately, I've already got an impression. Now, Janelle did a smart thing. She cut to the chase. She had the advantage that we'd already started that conversation here, but that's the right thing. That's what I want to know. I want to know what's the deal. Unfortunately, in this case, pilot is not necessarily the strongest suit for me as an agent, because I don't know how many roles I'm going to get where A, they require a pilot, and B, where that pilot actually has to do anything pilot-like. You know what I mean? Like in my acting career, I did 2 commercials where I was a helicopter pilot. I don't know anything about a helicopter. But I wore the scarf and did the thing. It's whatever it is that you have to say. So that's a wonderful special skill. It's probably not going to send the red carpet rolling out. So Janelle might be better to talk more about her. Now, you see what happened when she started to talk about herself. It got very shruggy and this and a lot of question mark. I'm not criticizing you. I'm just pointing out what I saw. And I know that that's because you're putting the thought together as you go and trying to figure out what will resonate, etc. But all I get is question mark. And when I see question mark, it answers the real question that I'm here to ask myself. Because I only have one question. 10% of her next year's income is how much? I mean, that's the honest truth of it. That's why we're in business. We don't get paid unless you get paid. So the only people we would take on are the people who are going to achieve a certain number. And I don't mean that crassly. I mean, what else is there? I don't want to sign a bunch of nice people who have special skills but aren't convincing me that they are money. Because what I want is a roster full of 6-figure plus bookers. So I only have 15 seconds to look at Janelle and calculate that number. And if there's a question mark and there's not really compelling evidence of why I should take this leap of faith, then I start to do the standard thing, which is be really nice to her and ask her really interesting questions and tell her it was nice to meet her and then give her one of the 3 major excuses. You all have gotten the 3 major excuses, I'm sure. Number 1, we have too many people of your type. Many of you have heard that, right? What we mean is we have too many people we already represent who we think will make more money in your category. It's all about that money number. How many six-figure plus bookers is too many to have on my roster? Unlimited. So when I say we have too many people of your type, I'm saying you haven't convinced me that you're the money. My second excuse is you're in a tough category. You're a tough sell. What do I care if you're in a tough category? That just means that when your category comes up, you'll be really right for the part. So again, what I'm really saying is there's not enough money on the table for it to be worth me doing the effort I'd have to do to wait for those roles that you'd be really right for. Does that make sense? The third excuse is we're not taking on new people at this time. We're not taking on people who earn less than six figures. We'll take on anyone who makes six and multiple six figures at any time, any number of them. But I'm not going to tell you that because it makes you feel judged. And I'm not here to judge you. I'm just here to calculate that number. I say I tend to be an exception. Sydney will tell you I spend a lot more time developing than most agency executives. But the development does no good unless you answer James's question, which is, what is it as an artist that is really powerful and special about you, and how can you articulate that in a way that it says money to me? This wasn't a bad interview. It didn't make me say I'm going to sign her, but good news, I haven't seen your killer reel. Maybe your killer reel is the entree, so you're coming in with me already going, she's a mother. You know what I mean? She's got the stuff. So if that reel is indeed killer and isn't too particularly specialty oriented, she's got a shot. We see that she knows how to be assertive and powerful, etc. We also see that, like the rest of us, she can get like that. So the key for you is to rule that stuff out, be clear on what it is about you that you want to present to the people you're meeting, and make sure you create really good transitions into that.
So take two. So go out.
Let's do it again.
Rewind.
Only, let's do something else here. Glasses, hold on. Are you ready, Janelle? Sure. Hang on. All right. All right. Let's turn this up. Okay, let's get you to enter now with some help. Okay, Sydney, bring her in. Hello, I'm Stuart.
Janelle Jones.
Have a seat. Hi.
Hey. How you doing?
I'm good. 6, 7, 8, 9.
I'm unique and exclusive because I'm really a tomboy in a dress.
Oh.
So if you put me on set and they ask me to do stick shift,
Yeah.
I can do the 4 on the fly.
Uh-huh.
I can find them, not grind them.
Right, right.
Good.
That's good. What kind of work have you done?
My latest is Goliath, season 3.
Yeah.
Court stenographer.
Oh.
My friend called me last night to say that I was mentioned at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Goliath.
What'd they say?
They said Janelle Jones, and they had my stenography credits at the bottom.
Oh, cool. Good, let's stop there. How'd that go? Better. Still, you see that Janelle doesn't really like to talk about herself, so it comes off as what? What's the word? Reticent, yeah, and that's what we gotta work on. And if that may be because you're not sure your evidence is compelling enough, or it may be just that you don't like talking about yourself. You got to talk about yourself. You have to be able to talk about yourself better than anyone else can. If you went to a car lot and you're the salesperson and I say, how about the Camaro? Is that good for me? And the person says, oh, yeah, it's a good car. It's got a good engine. I would never buy it. And that's the product the same way that you are.
Stuart, can you tell me what's the first thing that should come out of her mouth?
Yeah, the first thing should be conversation. Something that brings me out of, because what you want to do is get me feeling something. I'm here to I got another interview, so I'm going to see the actress and judge her and do all of that. And what you're trying to do is get me to be present in the room as a human being. So whether that be, I just met Sydney outside. She's an amazing assistant. How did you find her? Now I go, oh, yeah, you noticed. She is great. Well, let me tell you the story. By the way, Janelle was about to tell the story of the stenographer thing. That's more interesting than the data. Meetings should be stories, because the data isn't all that interesting. So I'm always looking for the opportunity to tell the story of the time I toured in India and I met the three-legged woman. I want to tell that story in an interview because it allows me to impersonate the three-legged woman and tell the story of how I felt and what I did, etc. But I have to have a good segue to get there. But that's easier to do than you think. You have a story that people go, oh my God, and when you tell it, you light up. That's the story you need to tell in our meeting. The data is not interesting. The story, your passion, the look in your eye, the impersonation you do of the three-legged woman. I'm serious. First land the plane in Delhi, India. Never been there before. Get off the plane. They see American artist, a crowd of 100 beggars saying, Baba, Baba, money. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I want to give money. And once you get seen giving money, now 500 people. And so now I'm grabbing my bags and I'm moving. There's a woman, she's bent over from the waist. So she has a shoe on this hand, because obviously going on the ground. And she gets around like this. And she's the fastest one of them all. Baba. And I'm like, ah! Three-legged woman. So that's a true story. But if I get the chance in a meeting to tell that story, as I just did, the ice is broken. Now, you can love or hate my story. You can love or hate me. My job is simply to show you me and allow you the chance to see it as money. Does that make sense? Give Janelle some love, please. Thank you. Thanks for doing that. Appreciate it.
And that same thing is absolutely true with me. When you've done an audition for me and we have personality interviews, you have some story that you want to tell me, because the storyteller, right? It's your job is to be a storyteller. And you tell a compressed story really fast, cut to the chase, start with the good part because you don't know how long we're going to talk. Tell me a story, paint a picture, be visual with it, demonstrate it. Bring characters into it. That's how I know immediately I'm going to get engaged with you. I'm going to get into what you're doing. So why not apply that same thing in the meeting where you need to get this person enthusiastic about sending you to me?
Go ahead, yell it out.
I'm sorry, I came in late,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to know.
We'll start again.
I didn't. Can I get your name?
I'm James Levine, Action Casting, and this is Stuart K. Robinson,
Oh,
CEO of PBR.
thank you.
Now,
Yeah.
next topic. So when you're represented, since you signed the person you're enthusiastic about and they have evidence of their greatness and they are easy to promote or not, but you're in the process. How do the people that you represent stay proactive? How do they do their part? What is their part? What is not their part?
Okay, so I got to qualify my answer because there are three answers to that question. Two of them are answers that industry people will not want to hear, and they'll disagree with me, but I'm right. And the third is something else. So my agency is different from most agencies in that our philosophy, a lot of agencies have the philosophy of please don't come to the office, bother us, we're busy representing you, you can come on Thursdays between 2 and 4 and we meet our clients, etc. We don't believe in that. I believe that the only way I can represent you is to really know you better. So with our clients, we have an open door policy. Now, again, the open door thing is very simple. You want to utilize what I call the hot minute. In other words, you want to visit your agent every 6 weeks for the hot minute. You come in, you're in a great mood, you're looking good, you say hi to this person, you tell someone about the audition experience you had, you give someone a little gift, it's a $5 thing you picked up because we had that last conversation, and then you say, I gotta go, so that the last thing you hear is, wait! Then you've done it right. And you can do that every 6 weeks. You can't come in and pull up a chair and say, I want to talk, and so, until we finally have to go, I got...
Is it really slow out there?
Yeah, so that's a whole other business, but the business of staying engaged with your agent means being present. Now, the agencies that you're with may have a different policy, so you got to figure out a different way to be in their line of sight, because out of sight, out of mind. But again, the reason I want you to visit is because I need to know you better. I need to know those special skills and that you have a sense of humor and that you come off as very classy and etc. All of those things that I didn't know because when I met you, you were in an improv comedy. So I'm only thinking of you when improv comedy roles come up. Does that make sense? So that's one. Every 6 weeks, be in your agent's presence. Two, very high on the list of things that agents consider is how high or low maintenance you are. They don't really want to hear your complaints every week. They'd rather represent people who just do something about those complaints rather than needing... And the other thing is, you probably have no idea how difficult it is for us when we get you an appointment and you need a time change or you can't make the audition. Because it sometimes takes an act of Congress to convince a casting director to see a new face. And then when we have to call him back and say, well, she can't really come at 2:30, could she come at 4:30? He's going, what? I just did you a favor. Now, I get it. Here's what you and I know. I know that there are things going on in our lives that we don't want our agent to know. We don't want our agent to know we're working at the Culver Hotel to pay the bills and we can't get away on certain days of the week and we're just trying to cover it and make it work. I get it. I know that there are many reasons why we need a time change. Sometimes getting childcare costs more than we would make on the job if it's not a lucrative job. And I know all of those things happen. But agents look for people who are going to be able to find a way to come through on the opportunities that they create. So it's very important that you are able to convince your agent that when they get you an opportunity, you'll make it work. You won't always make it work because things happen in life. But if you're someone who we're constantly having to get time changes and you don't show up on this audition and you cancel this audition, etc., it lowers the incentive to push for you. Because we'd rather push for someone who we know is going to make it.
Don't be a pain in the ass. All right? I mean, seriously. And for casting, too, we generally will try to provide time frames for people whenever possible. And don't abuse those. Don't ask for that every time. Don't come when it's just convenient for you. You know, it's courtesy, not an expectation that we're going to be able to work in their time frame. So, because there are plenty of people who will show up on time. And we notice after a while when you don't, or whether
Yeah.
that time had to get filled.
Yeah, and I don't word it as pain in the ass because I get it. When I first started as an actor, I was a manager at the McDonald's on La Brea, 12th and La Brea. And I couldn't go to auditions, so I had to like make up this thing. I'm going downstairs to count the stock in the walk-in freezer. And then I'd run to my car and there were many auditions where I'd arrive at the audition and see this many people in the lobby and just go, oh, fuck it, and go back to work before anybody discovered that I was out trying to squeeze in auditions. So I know that there are reasons why 2:30 on Thursday is not going to work for you. Again, especially if for me, I live on the west side. I have an audition in Burbank. Burbank? At 4 p.m.? No. That's going to take me 2 hours to get there and 2 hours to get back, and I work at McDonald's. And I don't want you to know I work at McDonald's. So you got to be good at that. And sometimes you just have to lay your cards on the table with your agent so that they know that your conditions are not lack of passion, are not lack of responsibility, and are not lack of being professional.
We want to see that you're committed, obviously, and consistently. And we notice that. We know when other people are just being high maintenance, because that's their personality. And we notice it. Eventually, we stop calling them in. A major question, and that I get a lot too, is for non-represented and represented, for self-submitting on projects. So Casting Frontier, which has been generous in hosting us here too, and our good friends, provide a lot of opportunities for people to self-submit. How do you feel about represented talent submitting themselves?
I would hope that if you're represented by my company, you feel very confident that any opportunity that's out there that is right for you, you're being submitted on. However, I do know that sometimes there are projects that are posted on the sites like Casting Frontier that I may not be getting. So all I would want is for you to have some taste and some prescience about what's good for your career and what's not good for your career. We're certainly not trying to get you to take your career in this direction. At the same time, I do think that you have to be a self-promoter and you have to look for opportunities on your own, etc. You just have to be smart about it. And if it were me, I would go to my agent and say, here are the kind of things that I tend to find on Casting Frontier and I submit myself on. How do you feel about those things? Because then it'll give me a sense of how my agent sees the trajectory of my career, etc. But I firmly believe you have to self-promote and you have the tools now to get yourself opportunities. Because there are jobs that you're going to do that are posted that don't seem like they're going to, but there's someone on the project that you want to work with and create a connection that will later turn into a big paying job. So some of the biggest jobs of my career came from me doing a freebie, a workshop of this project or a director's reel, or etc., which then led to that director becoming the bomb, and it led to hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of work. So you have to think that way, but you want to think wisely about that.
Be your own agent until you're represented to acquire some material so you have a reel so that you can get representation. Once you do have that representation, you have to communicate with what you're submitting on and that you may get a response about so that they know what we're talking about when we ask for the callback, or we want to book you and they don't know what we're talking about, or they didn't think that job was right for you for whatever reason that you didn't know. So if you're going to self-submit represented, communicate with your agent or manager so they know it too.
Just so you know, you guys are not alone. I'm sitting here so relieved that you didn't walk out hating me. You came back. No, I'm not. You don't have to explain. I'm not really.
No, she hated me.
I'm telling you. Okay, great. But that's how we all think. Let me tell you this story, this audition story. So I was on third callback for a television series that I ended up booking. But I was called into an office, and there were 4 people in the office. The director was over there, the writer was here on the thing, someone here was next to me on the sofa, and the executive producer, the big decision maker, was over there. And I was reading, and I was concerned that I wasn't young enough to play the part. So I had that in my head. So I'm reading the thing, and I'm reading with the director, and he's giving me the lines, and I see out of the corner of my eye the executive producer going, and I'm like, oh, shit. So then I start to pour it on because I figure I'm not doing enough. And the director says, whoa, whoa, whoa. Just do what you were doing. And I'm saying to myself, do you not see what's happening? So I start the reading again. And I start the reading. And now, more than the corner of my eye, I see. And I'm like, oh, God, this job isn't going to work. So I figure, now I got nothing to lose. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get this job. So tell me again what you want. And then me and the director do it. And sure enough, we do the 3rd reading. And I'm doing exactly what he wants. And the director's like this. But the executive producer is going like that. And by the grace of God, I listened to him and not to this. And went home. And my agent said, you booked it. And I said, booked what? She said, the series at Universal. I said, what? Are you kidding? That producer hated me. She said, well, they hired you. So then, back in those days, your agent would take you to the studio and introduce you around to the executives who were going to be on the show. And she took me to his office. I said, I don't want to go to his office. He doesn't like anything I do. She said, you're going to do it. I said, okay. So we went to his office. His secretary made us wait. She opened the door, and he came out and said, Stuart, glad to meet you. That was his thing. So I could have bought into those insecurities and then altered the performance and therefore not gotten the job. Sometimes you got to not listen to those voices in your head. So I only mentioned this actress over here because that's how our minds work. I go, oh shit, people are walking out already? God, I better turn it up. I better do more. But that has nothing to do with the honest truth of what you came to do. So when people say be authentic, that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about some special acting skill. They're saying don't give in to that commentator, that announcer in your head that's telling you you're blowing it and you're not right for this anyway, and look who else is sitting in the lobby that had 2 series already, and look at the look this person's giving you, and look at that person shaking their head. All that stuff is crosstalk that has nothing to do with why you came to this room. And if you listen to it, you're not 100% connected to my project. And I'm only hiring people when I'm directing who I know are going to eat, sleep, and drink this role.
A couple things he just said are the most important things to take away from this. Is if you don't believe when you come in the room that this is you own this, I'm already in this, it's on the air, and it's me, then you will never convince me of that. And if you're casting people in the lobby, oh, she's going to get this, they will. If you're thinking about if we like you, we won't, because that's not what we're here for. No, we're not here to make friends today. You need to kill this so my casting looks great, and I keep my clients. Then I'll like you. All right? We're not here to have small talk when you come in. Don't chit chat. Just get right to it because you're so good and you're so in this. That all we have to do is recognize that. And that's what I mean by owning stuff. People who come in who own it, get it. That's it. Bottom line.
And I would add to that, which will sound like I'm disagreeing, I would add, unless the chit-chat is a useful tool in helping me see the thing I need to see. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anybody not understand what I'm saying? Kind of.
Not
So, if the role you're auditioning for is a woman who's willing to stand up for her convictions even when the crowd is against her, that story you may tell about the conversation you had with the parking meter person. I'm just making sure Sydney remembers my parking. I know she does. She's on it always. If the story you're going to tell about that interaction makes me go, oh my God, this woman's got some inner strength, then it's valuable. When James says don't chit-chat, he means that useless stuff that Janelle and I did at the start of our interview. Hi, how are you? How are you? How are you? Are you good? You good? You good? You good? You good? But if you're able to launch into something that helps me go, oh wow, look at the strength of character of this person, that's not chit-chat. Do you understand the distinction? Yeah, and you got to get good at that. That's a skill. That's not easy to do. I want to be sure. I want to be clear that I'm saying these things I'm asking you to do. The question I had earlier about distribution to casting directors, getting them to click your link. I'm not saying that's easy. I'm saying it's all you have to worry about. I'm saying by hook or crook, by any means necessary, you need people like this to click that link. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying telling the three-legged woman story is easy to insert into an audition situation, and I'm not even saying that it's always successful. Sometimes halfway through this, they say, get the fuck out of here with that. What are you doing? You call my agent and say, I don't know what he's thinking. He came in here three-legged something. I'm not saying that won't happen. I'm saying the odds are it won't. And if it does happen, what do? You tell me.
I don't want to work with them anyway.
You don't want to work with them anyway. Okay, that's one approach. Yes, if someone's going to go off on you because you tried something and it didn't work, that's a sign that they have more of a problem than you have. But nonetheless, you might want to work at that studio. So what do? It's obvious. It's easy. Yeah. Apologize. Really. If I approach you with a thing and you go, hey, take that shit away from me. I want to say to you, I wasn't trying to offend you, and I didn't mean to do a thing. I just wanted you to see my passion. How do I make it up to you? And they'll say, you can't make it, blah, 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 blah. And then I show up the next day with a pizza, and I say nothing and say, peace offering, and I go away. And if that works, it works. I can't go around not doing things because I fear what will happen. You can't act from fear and expect to get where you want to get. You got to act from love. You got to act from passion. And you got to do it with taste. Don't do anything to me that you wouldn't want done to you. Don't hound me in a way that you wouldn't want to be hounded. Present me compelling evidence of why this exchange is good for me. So don't say Stuart K. Robinson gave me permission to be an ass. I'm not giving you permission. I'm saying I'm giving you permission to be courageous. Because don't get it twisted. Fear lives in us. Conquering fear is not the absence of fear. Courage is the ability to do it anyway, even though you're terrified. And if you do it badly, apologize. But don't keep reinventing the wheel every time somebody doesn't like what you do. But it goes back to what James said. That involves knowing what it is you do. I read lines in an audition. No, that's not what you do. Take a look at your reel tonight. Is that evidence of your superpower? If it's not your reel. The way you interact with people on a daily basis, the way you take meetings, the way you encourage others, is that consistent with your superpower? If not, you're taking the long route. But if you're going to not do things because you're afraid people won't like it, you don't want to be a performer.
Confidence.
Yeah, and I'm yelling at you like you did something.
Confidence.
But it's the most passionate thing. If you're someone who can't take the opinions of others, this is not the business you want to be in. Even as I stand here, I know that some of you are going, well, that's bullshit. I can't do anything about that. Because my intent is to be in your head tomorrow and next week and next month and have you go, ooh, I'm making a fear decision. I need to do this a different way. Ooh, I just upset someone. I need to genuinely apologize. If I can put that in your head and be on your shoulder, you're going to be okay. As long as you figure out what it is your superpower is and utilize that superpower at all times.
Seriously, confidence trumps talent. It is the most important thing you have, is your ability to deliver that thing, know that thing, deliver that thing with training and confidence, and do it precisely in front of the camera. If you're going to apologize, by the way, don't do it on camera for me. Please don't say I'm sorry or roll your eyes or sigh or do anything that comments on your performance while you're on the camera.
Yeah, I don't mean apologize for your performance.
Yeah,
If your performance is bad, own it.
Just
And learn from it.
Yeah, embrace your mistakes. Your mistakes actually lead you to be better, and sometimes they make you fantastic if you don't apologize for them. If you just accelerate into the curve, sometimes you do amazing things when you think you messed up. Should we go to some Q&A? A little Q&A?
Sure.
All right, members.
First hand up?
Oh, we covered everything. Okay.
First hand up?
Because I feel like I have a lot of material from past stage performances and just scenes that I've filmed that aren't totally professional, but they really show what I do.
Yeah.
I was told not to use it.
Yeah, unfortunately, when a lot of times in the theater, what they captured is a camera in the back of the house, so the sound is very echoey and distant, etc. So if it were me and you killed that role, I would contact the actors and actresses you worked with and get someone to shoot it with good sound. Because the sound is one of the key elements that tells us whether we want to watch it or not. If I'm hearing that echoey theater sound, it doesn't do anything. And I really want to be close up on you. So you have that material, you know that character, you know how to kill that character. You don't need to be on this stage to do it. So I would say those scenes that you think are really evidence of your greatness, shoot them. Yeah, because that theater thing doesn't help.
And you're applying for work on camera. That's what these jobs are. And we have to show that how you look on camera and how well you deliver on camera and in a high production quality.
Okay. He's James Levine. I'm Stuart. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Can I ask, how many scenes should we have on our reel, and should we use like a variety, like a comedy or a drama?
Yeah, it's a great question. There are a couple schools of thought on that. Some people say go with your strength and show me that. I always like to see multiple colors in a reel. But the honest truth is, how many scenes did you have? One or more? Because again, I'm only going to watch one if the first one isn't killer. So if you have two killer scenes, give me two. And by the way, when I say scene, I don't mean the whole scene. I mean 20 seconds of the scene where I go, oh, look at her fighting for her dignity. Okay, next. So I wouldn't want another fighting for her dignity scene. That's more what is in. I don't need it to be in comedy versus drama versus action adventure. I just need to, once I've seen you fight for your dignity, I want to see you charm the pants off of your boss. And then the third thing, I want to see you do something different. But if you have one scene that is breathtaking, send that. Don't send the stuff that's not. Yes, sir.
Yeah, going back to the character actor thing, like if that coincides with not somebody who you relay yourself as, then what's the best option to utilize it for? Like the actual clip itself.
If it's great work
Yeah.
and it's an extreme character,
Yeah.
yes, have it on the reel, just don't lead with it, is what I'm saying. Let me see you where I can cast you as the guy next door or a businessman or whatever it is, because if we're talking about you, I would cast you as, white collar guy all day long. But if the first thing I see is you playing a Russian immigrant, then I'm going to think, oh, that's what he does, and I'm going to turn it off there. So definitely include that character work, but don't lead with it. Because then it gives me a frame of reference that I love.
And in commercials and in the beginning of your career and anything theatrical, you don't have a range. You have a type. You have a thing that you do automatically. And you get to show your range as you get to work more. And you get that luxury and that opportunity to show a range. So you better be spot on target with what the thing is that happens that's magical automatically.
Yeah.
Hi, Stuart.
Hi.
I worked with you over 10 years ago in your school.
I know you.
Yeah, 2 years.
Yes.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you
School,
too.
Great. Kind of make it quick. How long should the reel be if it's a combination between comedy, drama, and that?
Yeah.
That thing that you said in the end?
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of separating the comedy reel and the drama reel. I'm a fan of choosing the most breathtaking work and putting it into one reel. I know there are other opinions. I'm not saying that's the law, but I'm just saying for me personally, I want one reel that shows the best of you. I'm going to give you what sounds like a cagey answer, Judy, but it's not. It can be as long as it wants because I'm only going to watch as much as is pleasing and exciting to me. So if your reel is 5 minutes, there's very little chance I'm going to watch the whole thing, but it doesn't matter because after the first scene, I'm either a fan or I'm not. After the second scene, I'm either convinced that I'm bringing you in or I'm not. So you could continue to show me other things, but usually you've got me after the second scene, the third scene. Sometimes we're trying to show them the breadth of our work with our reel. There's an actor in the room who I've had close-up workings with his reel. He has 8 things on his reel, but they're all killer. They're all amazing, and they're all a range of characters that are so amazing that I wouldn't want to choose. So all I can advise for him is put the strongest ones up front, and chances are they're going to sit through the whole thing because there's not a lemon on the reel. So my answer to you is you can put as many things as you want if you and your trusted circle of advisors believe that they're all killer. Just make sure you put the must-sees first. Minimum 30 seconds, maximum 5 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to stop watching after a minute and a half, so it doesn't matter unless.
2 minutes is a long time.
Yeah.
It really is. And
yeah.
if you look at a long time signature on it, I go, oh, alrighty. You know? So-
But I repeat, if you have 5 minutes and it's killer 5 minutes, send it. I'll stop when I'm ready.
Hi.
Hi.
So my daughter is the young actor. I'm not the actor. She's 13. I was wondering, for creating our killer reel, can I mix like theatrical, commercial, and some YouTube she's done, or what is your recommendation, or should these be separate?
Yeah, it's a great question. There are now some commercials that are better evidence of your greatness than theatrical pieces, so use them. There are occasionally some YouTube pieces that are really great evidence of what you can do. Unfortunately, less often. So don't put any boundaries. The best stuff that shows evidence of greatness. I use that phrase not casually, because that's what we're talking about. The shoes in the window, hopefully, are the best stuff in that store, because that's what gets you in the door. You go to a wine tasting at a winery, they're not serving up the cheap stuff so they can get rid of it. They're serving the top shelf stuff, hoping you'll buy 2 cases and keep coming back to that winery. So I wouldn't be snobbish about where the material comes from, whether I shot it myself or it was on YouTube or it was a local thing. I would just judge the level of impact and use that, because there are now some commercials that are all you need. Not often, but sometimes.
You want to avoid the product in there, right?
Nah.
No?
You want to avoid the product on your resume. Don't put products on your resume. The reason for that is, it's a stupid reason, but it's simple. If I'm casting a commercial for Pepsi, if James is casting a commercial for Pepsi, and we pass out the pictures and resumes among the clients, and they see Coca-Cola on your resume, they just don't want anything to do with you. And they don't need to know that you did a Coca-Cola commercial 7 years ago. But if you advertise it, they go, oh, no. So you don't want to put products there. But on a reel, I'm not judging that way. I'm really looking at you and saying, does he move the needle? And if you move the needle and there's a product in place, great. If you move the needle and there's language that I normally wouldn't want to hear, we don't worry about that so much anymore. We just go, wow, is this the guy? Make sense? Hi.
I have two questions actually. The first one is, do you have any recommendations we can find somewhere can make good reel for us?
I don't know if you all heard the question. Do we have recommendations of where they can make a good reel? To produce it,
Yeah.
to shoot it.
Yeah.
Well, the honest truth is, if you watch YouTube a little bit, you'll see that everybody you know can do it. Just ask people. If it were me, I would go to UCLA or USC and put something up on the bulletin board.
Or, are there any filmmakers in the room?
Yeah.
Go talk to someone.
So turn around and look at those hands in the air, because you may want to walk up to them and say, what's your deal?
Yeah, what you do?
And hopefully, in the spirit of community, they'll give you an incredibly, ridiculously good price, generous price. But my point is, with your iPhone, you now can capture the depth of field, etc. So just look at scenes that work and shoot it that way. Don't shoot it in your kitchen on a chair. Shoot it in an environment. In other words, if it takes place in an office, find an office. 2 characters, shoot over the shoulder, just a little bit of the shoulder in the shot, close up on that person, shoot a medium, then turn it around, shoot the same thing the other way, and edit it together, and you're done. It's really pretty simple, but because I'm trying to save you money is what I'm trying to do. I could send you to places that make reels, but they're going to charge you an arm and a leg for something that I promise you, Paul, who's sitting 2 seats away from you, can do. He doesn't want me to tell people that, but he can do it better and do it for 50 cents.
And the truth is, if the acting is good, if we can see it clearly and the sound and picture are good, that's not going to get you hired. The quality of the video, it's what you're doing.
Yeah, and sound is important. Right now, I'm mic'd here and I'm mic'd here. It's connected to an iPhone. So all the technology is there. You don't have to go out. Back in my day, when I was starting out, you had to spend 12 grand in order to capture these kinds of things, because you had to rent equipment and get all this stuff, and then go to an editing facility at $175 an hour while some guy goes, eh. But now, all that's in your computer.
So I've heard stories and have had a couple experiences with that first agent meeting where they really want to talk about your actor's access profile. That's what they want to spend the entire interview on.
Why? What do they want to know?
How am I going to sell you? We need to get you some more pictures. You need to take videos of these specials, because they spend all their days submitting.
Yeah.
This.
So they have a discussion with you about what materials they need to populate that profile? Is that what you mean?
I guess the larger question was how to, your opinion about online casting in general, and when conversations go that way about the minutia of the marketing materials.
Yeah, I find that most actors I see who direct me to their sites have way too many pictures on the site. One, because usually 5 of them are a repeat of the same color that I saw earlier, and also because as a casting person or as an agent, I don't have the time to sort through 17 photos of you. So I'm a big fan, and I would express this to anyone that was representing me. I think I'm pretty clear on what my colors are, and I'm going to capture that. And if there are other colors you feel I have, let's work together on doing that. But I don't want to be posting me with too many dishes and all that because you think that's cute. I want to just represent the colors that I have.
Yeah, and there's only 4 or 5 pictures is great. And mostly we're going right to your Instagram. So, and my clients are mostly going right to your Instagram where they can see 1 million pictures of you in every variation. And an important thing, the director just said the other day was they look at your Instagram not just to see your different faces, but to see your judgment.
Yeah, meaning you on Friday night at the club, that shot you do tells them something about you. And, you know,
Be conscious of that.
I get it. See, I don't use Instagram in that way. Do any of you follow my Instagram?
My clients demand
Okay.
it. They demand
So you know what's there. My Instagram is all this. It's pretty much, right? Pretty much all it is me saying, you can do better. You can. You can do better. If you have any wanting in you, you can have it. You can get it. You can do better. You can achieve that. So I don't have pictures of me at the club. Occasionally I have a picture of me at the Laker game or me whatever, but it's all related to the experience. And I know I've had artists say to me, yeah, but my Instagram is where I get to connect to my friends and all that. Then you need a separate account that he's not going to find.
We got about 5 minutes more questions and a couple announcements, and then so.
And remember, I need
Yeah.
10 minutes at the end.
A couple more
A
questions.
few more questions. I don't want to pick. Oh, your second question.
What about if she doesn't get one?
Sorry, I just quick questions about those self-tapings. Any recommendations? So many self-taping auditions right now.
Yes, self-tape. Easy answer. Same as your reel. You can do it with your iPhone. Just make sure you have good sound.
And an important answer to that is if you don't do your self-records with clean video and sound, I can't show them to my clients. So I present your self-records to my client, and people are going way out of their way to put too much production value. Sometimes they put a score to it, and they do it. It's not necessary, but give it quality because that's the presentation I'm showing to my client.
Lighting, time?
Lighting and sound, period.
1 and then 2. And then I'll let him decide.
My current manager is kind of implying to me that he's having a hard time finding me an agent because I'm not SAG, and he's recommending that I do a ton of background work to become SAG. But I kind of wasn't sure that was a good idea because I don't really have a resume, and I don't want to be in the union with no resume. And he thinks I need that to get representation with an agency.
Yeah, I'm not finding that kind of resistance these days. There was a time where casting was saying to us, you know, if they're not union members, we don't want to audition them, etc. But I'm not finding that to be the issue. To me, it always, again, goes back to the evidence. If I have an actor who hasn't yet had the opportunity to join the union, which is a great thing, if they have evidence that they're a star, they're going to get seen. So I think sometimes we look at, your representatives like to use certain things as excuses. First thing they'll tell you when you're not getting auditions is you need new pictures. And you just had pictures done 2 months ago. But that's an easy thing to point at. The pictures aren't working. Your reel isn't strong enough. You're not in the union, etc. At the end of the day, if you have that killer evidence, that should be all we need to get you started. Because all you need to do is book one great union job and then behind you. So I don't know that I want to see you work as a background artist for X amount of time in order to achieve a card that no one's really going to ever ask to see. I want you to join the union when you feel you're ready to book at that level and earn your living. So, yeah, I don't want to step on your manager's toes, but I don't feel that way.
That's what I was thinking too. So
Yeah.
There's some politics to that answer, but most commercial agents now are happy if you're non-union, SAG eligible, or financial core because they can send you on more stuff.
Yeah, but that's all business stuff that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the evidence of your greatness and your ability to get opportunities, whatever those opportunities are. You can get caught up in all the politics of it, but at the end of the day, you need people to say, yes, I will see this artist, and you need to go in, serve it up, book the job, and you'll never look back. That's all it is.
And I'm sorry, and to add to that, theatrically, you need to be SAG. Theatrically, you can only go to a certain level if you're not SAG. Yeah.
Yes.
Question?
Yes, I'm Tracy Weiser. We've spoken a lot about reels, but my clips are all on IMDb Pro as clips and Actors Access as clips. So is there a difference for you rather than a reel form versus clip, 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 clip?
Yeah, there is a difference in that the average agent or casting person doesn't want to do the work to click this clip and then this clip and then this clip. They would much rather have it all served up with one click of the link. So although it's valuable on your IMDb and your sites, etc., there should be the ability for me to do one click and see the evidence of your greatness.
Well, you know, when we submit on Actors Access, it'll say,
Yeah.
you know, what do you want to, you want to include a clip.
Yeah.
And I always include the most appropriate one for whatever I'm
Yeah.
submitting for.
That's smart and that's good. It doesn't mitigate the bigger issue, which is, I mean, that's great when you submit on this thing that you have some footage that speaks to that. But still, those 15 people who need to get you as an artist need to get that. Yeah.
One more question.
You came back.
Hi, I did. I took your commercial workshop with my friend Teacher, and I'm wondering, I loved it, life-changing.
Thank you.
I'm wondering what's happening with Robinson Creative, and if it's not happening, what other training do you recommend?
That's a great question. Yeah, I had to close my studio because I'm running 3 companies and there just wasn't time in the day to do it. So that's why my Instagram is what it is, because I'm trying to at least create a platform where you can get the kind of inspiration and information, etc. I'm going to this is going to sound bad, but I don't really know in the commercial realm who to recommend because no one knows what I know. And I don't think you need advice on how to read the lines or how to smile on camera, etc. I think all of us, what we need is information that helps us own our greatness. So, a lot of good schools. I don't want to come off the top of my head. Email me. What's the email?
Email me, swalker@bbrtalent.com.
swalker@bbrtalent.com. And I'll email you back some suggestions. You'll tell me a little more about what you're looking for, etc. Because I know all the experts in town say, well, you got to have some improv and you got to have this, etc. So I want to know what you're hearing and what you feel you need. So I'll answer that specific question. Something like me.
Also, I teach a class, which is actually starting next week.
Oops.
So,
yeah. Yes. I forgot to mention that.
Thank you. And anyone interested in that, write to me right away at info@actioncasting.net. We have a class starting next Wednesday.
Do you share that information of where you studied when you first came to town as an actor?
This was my first teacher.
Ah.
My first acting teacher in LA.
So he gets it.
I got it.
Will you
Yeah.
repeat your email address?
Info@actioncasting.net. And the class starts next week. It's 4 weeks, 8 to 10 at On Your Mark Studios. And I will send you a link to sign up.
Yeah, and while we're pitching, I think you should follow me on Instagram because it's more of this and it's free. And you should buy my book. It All Begins with I. It's the 14 rules that if you follow them, you'll be able to do all these things that we're talking about. They're not rules for everybody else. They're rules for you. And if you follow them, your life gets better. It's nothing you don't already know. It's just the reminder of that you have to do the things that you know. At Stuart K Creative, at Stuart Stuart K initial Creative is Instagram and Facebook and is it Twitter? It's Twitter too. Last question up in the back row.
The poem, is that poem, where did that come from? Or?
That poem is a poet named Mary Oliver, and it's called Wild Geese, and I highly recommend you Google it and stick it on your mirror, because you get it. Should I close?
I'm sorry. I apologize for interrupting. I didn't get your information correctly. I missed something. You said
His
info
or mine?
action.
Oh, action, info@actioncasting.net. It's
Yeah.
James Levine, Action Casting.
So how are you feeling? Because I'm not really not asking for a round of applause. I don't like to show up and do this and not make a difference. Not have you feel like you got something that you didn't have before you came. I want to be sure that that took place today. I don't like walking around saying, I spoke at Casting Frontier today and didn't really do anything. So, thank you. Thank you for that. So, my close is different, and some of you may have heard me talk about this before. I think the biggest problem in the acting community is the thing that I referred to earlier, and I have it happen to myself often. What I forget, and what we forget, is we forget who we are. You know, you come here and somehow convince yourself that you're a student. You're not a student, you're an artist. You've been at this for however long you've been at it, and you have whatever superpowers you have. But the world keeps convincing us that we're not enough. World keeps convincing us that we're someone else, that we're hoping to be. I want to be an actor. Somehow, some of you, the world has convinced you that you're a food server, because that's what you're doing to pay the bills, when you know that the reason you came to this town is to do your art. And in my view, that's what sets us back. What sets us back is forgetting who we are. I forget who I am sometimes, because most of the time, I'm going to be honest with you, I walk around feeling pretty good about who I am. But I forget. I don't want to attend my reunions because I'm afraid everybody at the school will go, well, how come you weren't more successful? But that's not what it's about. It's about knowing who you are. And if you're in the mood, I have a story that I tell that is a reminder of who you are. Are you interested in hearing it? Yes. Okay. It has music too, because I do that. But it's a serious story that requires glasses. Yeah. It's a meaningful story, and I want you to get it. Let's see. That's not it. That's just a volume check. You can dance later. Here we go. This is the story of who you are. To remember who you are, you have to go all the way back to the beginning of time. I mean it. Where every organism was forced to evolve or perish. And the fight to achieve what we now call humanity began. Whether you were a species like us, or a piece of dirt, or water, or marrow, you were in a desperate race to evolve or perish. So true modern history, in human terms, actually began 40,000 years ago in the cave region of southern France. Picture it. So there was the Neanderthal. The Neanderthal had clawed his or her way to the top of the food chain, and they enjoyed such a lengthy period of domination that it was almost unfair when the Cro-Magnon showed up and showed the ability to wipe them out in a remarkably short time. That's evolution. Now, the Cro-Magnon, you think of them as a caveman, but the Cro-Magnon actually shared the same bone density, the same size of brain and brainstem, and the same ability to reason as exists today. But instead of worrying about things like global warming and taxes, the Cro-Magnon knew that extinction lurked in every threat, from the smallest infected bug bite to the people-eating beasts inhabiting the trees. The only relevant questions of the day were, how do I survive the day? How do I evolve? So, the answer to those vital questions, how to evolve, came one bright evolutionary day in a smoky, musty, very noisy cave where your life and your calling and your destiny were forever changed. In this cave, the noise was because there was an argument going on about who was the greatest hunter, who had the greatest kills and the greatest skills. Remember, this was a time where the society was based on the concept of the hunter-gatherer. To be the best hunter was like tantamount to being the Pope. Minorities, not so popular in that day. But again, it was physical attributes and lack of athletic prowess were indicators of old age, lack of prowess, those kinds of things, disability. Those were indicators of second-class status, minority status. So the aged, the weak, and the feminine were relegated to secondary status. So on this particular day, the stakes were extremely high because winter was coming, and the hunt had not gone well at all. Even as the hunters of the tribe argued about who was the greatest last year. You see, as great as these hunters were, their powers of reasoning, communication, and memory were not among their greatest skills. They were at odds as to where the previous year's game had been found and how successful the hunt, how it had taken place. And as a result, the clock was ticking. And the very survival of the clan was in serious jeopardy. And it wasn't long before the argument escalated to blows being exchanged. How could they possibly survive the bitter winter to come with no food, no pelts? It seemed like all was lost. But from deep within the cave, an old, somewhat crippled, and therefore useless outcast began to chant. And soon, the cave was silent, except for the chanting of the old outcast. He stood in emotion for the hunters to gather round, but they spit at him, of course, because he was a useless cripple. But in his hand was a stone bowl of ochre clay paint. And that was a product that had never been seen before at this time. And with this paint, the cripple began to paint on the cave wall the story of last year's hunt. He illustrated the landscapes and the vantage points the hunters had employed. He impersonated the sound of the hunters' voices, and he even included the wild beasts who had posed threats during the hunt. His recreation of the great victorious hunt inspired the hunters. The hunters took up the chant and they rushed from the cave to begin what became the most successful hunt ever. And the clan was not only saved, but thrived and continued to evolve. The outcast? He was exalted to the position of medicine man, of soothsayer, of sage, and his stories became the lifeblood of the tribe. All because of his ability to create and retell the sacred story of the hunt. A tradition that goes through this very day. Past the shaman of the Mongols and Turks and the spiritual leaders of the ancient Asian cultures, the medicine men of the Native American tribes, and on to this very day, where artists remind us of our greatness, of our fallibility, and our humanity through the stories they create. That lonely outcast was your direct descendant. The very first performing artist, painter, writer. He took his place at the head of the tribe, as should you, as the true visionary leader and protector of the species. If you're an artist, greatness is in your bloodline. And I'm talking to each and every one of you. Your legacy was born thousands of years ago in that dark cave, and it calls to you this very day. Remember and accept the responsibility to tell the sacred story. Every day when you wake, your artist ancestor spirits call out to you that there is royalty in you. And that voice urges you to claim your place as the kings and queens of your society. That is your legacy. That is your history. And that, my friends, is who you are. Thank you. There's going to be no shortage of people who are going to tell you that you're not enough, or you're not pretty enough, or tall enough, or rich enough, or good enough, or smart enough, etc. That doesn't change the fact that there's royalty in you. So I hope that the things that we've shared with you today are going to stay with you and help you achieve the things that you need to achieve. It's been my pleasure to be with you, and I'm sure James has some announcements, but I thank you.
Give it up.